Hi, my dear students, how are you? Welcome to the session. In this video, we are going to talk about how to solve, resolve, and explain questions, which form an important part of critical reasoning section. So let's get started. My name is Juhi Narula. Before we actually talk about how to solve the questions, let's first understand what do we mean by resolve and explain. So resolve means finding a solution and explanation. I'm sure you're friendly with the term. So what happens in resolve and explain questions is that you're provided with two facts. So you have fact one, fact two. So quite often I have raised this particular point that whatever facts are offered in the argument, those are to be considered true. So in this case, the argument will comprise of two facts. They both are correct, but they disagree with each other. So for sure, you'll find a negative transition word in between both the facts. So this is one important clue to identify that the argument is for resolve and explain questions. So you can find the words like yet, uh, nonetheless, right? Nonetheless, nevertheless, in spite, despite, right? But so you'll find these words. Now, what our role is to look for an answer choice that gives us a possible explanation for the discrepancy or for the contradiction that appears in the argument. So that is how the name has come, resolve and explain. So resolve the contradiction, the apparent discrepancy, and explain us that what could be a possible reason for this to happen. So first important thing that you need to keep this in mind is that your idea to understand the paradox should be very clear. Without understanding the discrepancy, you will not be able to reach to an answer choice, right? Next thing that you need to keep in mind is that these questions are similar in approach as we have inference questions where there are just facts stated. So there is no conclusion and premise. You have just the facts, right? And always be careful, like I previously mentioned, to observe the negative transition words because they will play an important role in cracking the question. So this is the list as I was talking about: yet, however, although, but, paradoxically. So I'll give you a minute. Please pen down these words. These will be important while you'll solve the questions. Quickly do so. I'm sure you've jotted down the words. So let's quickly take a look at a question because talking too much would not make sense to you. Let's observe this quick, simple argument. So, sanctuary ex caretakers, I hope you understand sanctuary. Sanctuary is a place where wild animals are kept so that they can be in their natural surroundings, and there are high chances that the species are going to thrive and they are not going to get extinct. So, in order to save them from getting extinct, or rather to promote them staying in a natural environment, sanctuaries are created. So, sanctuary ex caretakers for a very long time had a very active procedure to feed deer to support such creatures. So there are in our country also there are exclusive wildlife um, government organizations and agencies which hire people. So they're saying that they were caretakers and they were having a very active procedure to feed deer to support these creatures. However, so take a look, like I said, you will find such negative transition words, and this is a very good indicator to observe when we are talking about resolve and explain questions. The life expectancy of deer in sanctuary X has considerably decreased. Are you able to understand? There are two facts. So there is a procedure where we are feeding deer, and the second thing that has happened is that the life expectancy has decreased. So this should not happen. If you are eating well, just try to relate it. If you're eating well, your life expectancy is going to increase, but it is going down. So both these facts are correct, but these facts are disagreeing with each other. So we have to look for an answer choice which helps us understand that why this contradiction is appearing in the argument. So let's take a look at the answer choices. The food provided by caretakers is not tested by Animal Health Authority. So this is irrelevant, right? There has been an increase in number of tigers in the century. So again, this is out of scope. The survival skill of deer have decreased considerably as a result of their dependency on caretakers. This can be a possible reason, right? So they're not able to, fight their own battles. So this we can keep. The deer are very friendly with visitors of the sanctuary because of their increased interactions with caretakers. So this is out of scope. So the best answer choice that can give a possible explanation is that we should go for C. Right. So why not A? Because the argument is already saying that they have active procedure. So the food provided is or tested is irrelevant. The number of tigers increase. So life expectancy is that how is your ability to deal, right? It is not because of the existence of wild animals around. And we are not as so interested in how the nature of deer has changed towards visitors. So the only option that will give us a solid reasoning would be C, that since they are not making any effort to catch their own food or work on their own food, so they are too much dependent, and that can be a possible reason that their survival skills have decreased. So that is the reason we will go for C as an answer. So I hope the game is very clear to you. You have two facts. This is fact one, this is fact two, and then there is this negative transition word in between both the facts. So you need to understand the discrepancy and then you should answer the question, right? So what is the basic procedure? I always say begin with reading the question. So this is how the question stem would look like. Which of the following, if true, will resolve the paradox, helps to explain the situation, explains the apparent contradiction? Or rather, if you have time, why don't you just note down these words? See, I always say that do some scratch paper work while you're attending the classes. That gives you more significant output, right? So paradox, discrepancy, conflict, reconcile, justify, contradiction. There is, this just can be a bad day that you did not, while you were attending the class, watching the video, did not focus on reconcile, just for instance. And the same question came, and you were under stress, and you could not just actually realize what you're supposed to do. So we don't want ourselves to be in such mess. That is the reason I always say these are little details, but they create a lot of impact. So take a minute and write down these words, and then we are going to proceed. So let's further move. Second is deconstruct the argument. So, like I said, in the argument, you are provided with facts. So, there will be no conclusion or premise like we get in assumption, strengthening, and weakening questions. We are just provided with facts. What our role will be to understand the facts and see how they are, disagreeing with each other. So, fundamental clarity on the paradox is important. Then only you will have that understanding that what the correct answer should be. So pay attention to the details, right? The next will be identify the paradox. So again, I'm reinstating, a lot of vigilance is needed, a lot of focus is needed, a lot of attention is required, and of course you need to observe these words. So this is something which is very important because fundamental clarity of the paradox is the key to solve such questions. Next step would be to eliminate the incorrect answer choices. So keep on eliminating the incorrect ones. Whatever remains shall serve as the right answer. So what are the grounds of elimination? Let's learn. First is that remove or eliminate any answer choice which is one-sided. Suppose there is a disagreement between two students of mine, and let's name these students. Let's create this hypothetical situation. So he is student A. I'm so sorry if you are finding my drawing very funny. It is, but I'm really bad at it, and with pen tab, I become all the more bad. So the one with two antennas is student B and he's student A. So they have a fight. Now, what I'm trying to do, instead of taking, finding a solution, I'm taking side of A. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to, rather take sides instead of giving a solution to a problem, right? So you can eliminate answer choice which is one sided, which is, not any good resolution would be that is considering both the aspects, right? I would listen to both and then give a solution. But if I'm just taking not taking sides, I'm not giving any valid solution, I'm just taking sides. So of course this is not the right behavior. So this is where answer choice that you can, eliminate. Of course, keep this in mind that out of scope answer choices get eliminated. I'm sure this is, by the time you have realized, is our favorite tool for elimination. एंड थर्ड विच वर्सन्स द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. अब दोनों लड़ाई कर रहे, मैं कह रही हूँ और लड़ू, अरे तूने बी को बोलू, तूने तो ए का ये पॉइंट नहीं बताया, ए को बोलू, तुमने बी का ये पॉइंट नहीं बताया. सो यू मेकिंग द conflict worsen, you're worsening it. So of course that will be also a rational point of elimination, right? So out of scope, one-sided, and which worsens the conflict, you can eliminate the answer choices, right? So keep this in mind. Extreme answers, like I've always said, should be eliminated. Try to align your answer as much as possible to the main text and don't get driven by your instinct. Rather, be very rational and fair and decide your answers on the basis of information provided rather than using your own knowledge, right? So let's try some questions. This is the first question for you. Now, since we have already solved one example, I'm sure you've got a hang of it. Try it for a minute and then we'll discuss it together. Very interesting question. I'm sure you're going to really enjoy solving it. So we can begin with the discussion. So let's see this question. So the first step, like I always say, we should read the question. Which of the following, if true, explains the paradox that is present in the argument? So it's a resolve and explain question, right? So do these small steps so that you can inculcate the habit to follow the procedure, right? So it's a resolve and explain question. Let's see what are the facts of it. Recently, a new mall World here opened in the locality Park Avenue. The owner of the other existing malls feared that their business will be adversely affected. Look at the negative transition word. However, it was seen that business of Sphere Mall increased significantly. अब आप देखिए, एक लोकेलिटी है पार्क एवेन्यू, वहां पर एक एग्जिस्टिंग मॉल है स्फीयर, right? Up there is another mall that opens. So of course it is expected that the business of this sphere mall will get down, right? Isn't it expected? But हुआ क्या कि इसका business बढ़ गया. So what is the reason? Now if you must have seen that there might be areas in your city where which are very fancy, right? So there's a restaurant running and still people would want to open another restaurant there in that. Why? It is expected that the business will go down, but the business doesn't go down, rather it increases. So the first thing is important that you are able to understand that what is the disagreement or what is the conflict all about. There was one place, There was one locality, the name of locality is Park Avenue. वहाँ पे एक existing mall था, एक नया mall आ गया तो existing mall का business नीचे गिरना चाहिए था पर वो increase हो गया. तो एक answer choice जो explain कर दे कि ऐसा क्यों हुआ होगा would serve as the right answer. Right? So let's explore the options. The commodities at the Sphere Mall are affordable as compared to ones available at the World Mall here. तो affordability की तो बात नहीं हो रही. So this goes out. The World Mall remains closed on 2 days and hence people visit Sphere more frequently. So again, business के aspect की बात नहीं कर रहे. The sale of World Mall are higher in festive seasons, again out of scope. There are two more residential complexes open for people to stay, and due to the construction of metro, footfall in the park avenue has increased manyfold. So this is giving a reason. अब इसको आप ऐसे समझो कि एक सोसाइटी में पहले 100 people थे and all these were going to the existing mall sphere. अब क्या हुआ? There is a new mall that is opened and the name of the mall is World here. So what will happen is that now if there are 100 more people coming, so if 80 also go there, there would be at least 20 more going here, right? So that clearly explains why the business must have increased. So we can keep this. There are more eateries in the World here mall. So this is not helping us understand that why the business of Sphere Mall has increased. So in this case, we are going to pick D as an answer. I'm sure we are sorted. Let's move to the next question. So I'm sure you've tried the question. Let's start the discussion. Which of the following, if true, resolves the paradox that's present in the argument? So clearly it's a resolve and explain question. Z country is a windy nation and the wise scientists of the country have intelligently used windmills to harness energy. Harness means to create energy. Thankfully, enough energy is generated, which is more than sufficient to meet country's need. Despite, take a look at the transition, the fact there is acute problem faced by the countrymen and there is hardly any electricity supply. So I'm sure you're able to understand that there is this country Z. There's a lot of potential of it's a windy nation. So scientists have used the wind to harness energy, and there's a lot of energy, but still people are not able to get benefited, and people are suffering from acute problems. So any answer choice which gives us a possible explanation should serve as the right answer. So let's take a look at the options. There's a lot of requirement of energy by the native, so say this is not giving us a answer that why despite having a good production people are not able to, people are getting acute shortage. The wind flows more in spring season, irrelevant. The country scientists are trying to create hydroelectricity. I think these three are pretty straight eliminations. The country is gaining a lot of revenue by selling electricity to a neighboring country. So that can be a possible reason that the manufacturing is happening, but you are selling it to other nations, so you have no electricity for your own people. So we can keep this. People illegally try to get electricity without paying for the bills or taking proper connection. So what do we do of this? This doesn't help us resolve the paradox. Hence, we'll pick D as the right answer, right? So I'm sure we are sorted. Let's try the next question. Please take a minute and then we'll discuss. Let's try solving this particular question. Which of the following best explains the seemingly discrepancy? So again, as we can understand, this is having a word discrepancy. So it is a resolve and explain question, right? Resolve and explain. So let's first try and understand that what is the contradiction. Right. So the Americans with Disability Act was created to ensure that there is no discrimination against an unfair termination of differentially abled workers in the workplace. However, after the act was introduced, there has been a marked increase in the unemployment among differentially abled. So there was this act which said द एक्ट इंश्योर्ड कि कोई भेदभाव नहीं होता एंड कोई अनफेयर प्रैक्टिस नहीं होती अगेंस्ट differentially abled people. But हुआ क्या था? In unemployment rate has increased. Rather, if the situation becomes feasible, there should be more people who would be happily working. But it has not happened. The unemployment rate has increased. So let's understand that what can be a possible reason for the same. A number of differently abled people chose not to work, so that will not come under the unemployment, right? And then we are not able to understand that how did the act play a role. So any answer choice should try to deal with both the aspects of the discussion. Not willing to deal with the issue of workplace discrimination of the differently abled, several companies recruited fear of them in the first place. So this can be a possible solution, that they don't want to get into it whether the fair treatment is being provided or not. So rather they have reduced the people getting hired so that there is no unnecessarily botheration for them, as what the argument says. So this we can keep. There was no act introduced that would guarantee a job. So again, guarantee a job and act was introduced to ensure that there is fair treatment. The unemployment among the able-bodied has remained constantly high. So able-bodied we are not talking about. Hence the correct answer choice is definitely going to be B. I hope we are sorted in this question. So let's move to the next one. Take a minute to try and then we are going to discuss. So let's begin with the discussion. Which of the following, if true, helps to explain the French paradox? So this is a very interesting question. Let's see what do we mean by French paradox. French cuisine is famous for its frequent and liberal use of cream and cheese, both high in saturated fats. For years, medical studies have shown the strong correlation between diets high in saturated fat and coronary heart disease. And yet, France has a much lower incidence of such diseases that found in comparable countries like United States. This is called French paradox. So they are saying that the French cuisine uses cream and cheese liberally, and there is a high correlation that people who consume such high saturated fat, they'll be more prone to heart disease. Now, yet as the transition, France has a lower incidences of such disease despite having such high um, inclusion of cream and cheese. So, when you'll compare it to countries like USA, so you need to give an answer that explains that why this is happening. That despite consumption of high saturated fats, there is lower incidences of heart ailments, right? So let's take a look at option A. Certain kind of cheese can have as much as 5 times amount of saturated fat that cream has. So this does not resolve the paradox, right? So our goal should be to give a resolution to the existing problem. So this is an easy elimination. People in the United States per capita eat almost same amount of saturated fats on average as do people in France. But again, what do we do of this fact? This is not giving us any resolution. The United States imports more cheese from France than any other country. This is again irrelevant to the context. So this is irrelevant. What do we do of this, right? So this also goes out. Red wine, typically served with French food, helps to clean the buildup of fats in the arteries, reducing the risk of heart disease. So this is served with French food, and this is, you know, this helps to clean up. So this is giving a reason that why, despite a lot of consumption of high saturated fats, the rate of heart ailments is lower in France. So we can keep this. It's typical for a French person to have either cream or cheese at each of the three meals. So again, we can eliminate. So the correct answer will be D in this case, right? Interesting question, isn't it? And this is a very famous discussion on French paradox. So I'm sure we are sorted. Let's move to the next question. I'll give you one entire minute to try. Please try this, then we are going to discuss. So let's take a look at the question. Which of the following, if true, contributes most to an explanation of the difference in the reported feelings of connectedness between urban and ex-urban dwellers? So let's see. Life is an urban center with daily experiences of subways, crowded sidewalks, and dense living provide countless opportunities for social contact and connection. Ex-urban life, by contrast, so pay attention, exists in the openness of freeways and 1 acre lots exhibiting little that would suggest social commonality. Yet, studies show that people who live in ex-urbia consistently rate their feelings of connectedness to their community as strong, whereas urban dwellers more frequently express feeling of isolation. So, जहाँ urban centers हैं, typical example that we are living in metros and we, despite having so many people around, still people feel, you know, distant. But When we talk about ex-urban life, people living in small cities or in villages, they find and they're far away. I mean, they are not as closely knit as metro cities are, but there is a strong connection, social connect. So any answer choice which gives an explanation that why this is happening would serve as the right answer, right? So let's take a look at the answer choices. The cost of living in ex-Serbia is significantly lower than in urban areas. So we are not talking about cost of living, right? So this is out of scope. A choice goes out, right? So we can just write it's irrelevant or out of scope, whatever you write. Rates of attendance at houses of worship are much higher in ex-urban areas than in urban areas. Okay, so let's houses of worship ज़्यादा होते तो possibly there can be a meter point where people are joining. So we can keep this. Ex-urban school districts often spend more per capita. So again, spending capability पे question नहीं है. So this goes out. The rate of violent crimes is much lower in ex-urban areas than in urban areas. This also goes out. Many people who live in ex-Serbia moved there from urban area. Again, this goes out. So the best option amongst the available answer choice is B. Now, at a glance, if you will take a look, you might be, slightly taken aback where you are not trying to, understand that how, attendance at house of worship is going with the rhythm. But this, amongst all the options, this is the best which gives a possibility that people are making social connect there, right? So that is the reason we will go for B as an answer. So at times this might also happen to you that you're not very convinced with the correct answer. The reason to include this question was very specific, that you should understand that this is the best among the given choices, right? So this can happen many of the time. So here we should be sure why the other four are incorrect. Whatever remains shall serve as the right answer, right? So let's further move to the next question and try this. So let's take a look at the question. Which of the following, if true, will contribute to an explanation for increase except? So we are looking for an answer which will not contribute. That means fourth will give a possible explanation, four choices, one will not. So please see that these are important clues that should not be missed. Otherwise, you might really be confused and bamboozled unnecessarily, and that we wouldn't want. Amy, owner of a washer dryer company, was financially financially struggling to pay her bills. In order to overcome this problem, as she replaced her high voltage electricity irons with low voltage electricity irons, which are rated highly efficient. However, her bills increased. So she was having difficulty in paying the bills. So she replaced her high voltage irons with low voltage irons. पर उसका बिल फिर भी बढ़ गया. So अगर आप ऐसे प्रोडक्ट्स की तरफ जाओगे जो लो वोल्टेज इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कंज्यूम कर रहे हैं, तो इन अ वे क्या होगा कि आपका बिल रिड्यूस होगा, राइट? पर हुआ क्या, बिल इंक्रीज हो गया. सो अब आपको वो आंसर चॉइस ढूंढना है. चार आंसर करेंगे, एक एक्सप्लेन नहीं कर पाएगा. सो प्लीज कैच अ ट्विस्ट, राइट? एट टाइम्स हम यही नहीं पकड़ पाते तो हम कंफ्यूज हो जाते हैं. सो लेट्स टेक अ लुक. The new irons use a smaller percentage of electricity as compared to old one. तो अगर आप इस आंसर चॉइस को देखोगे तो this is not helping us understand that why it is happening. तो ये एक possible answer की तरह behave कर सकता है. But let's take a look at all the options and then finalize. After the change made, coincidentally, more people opted for services from Amazon. So this can explain that more people were coming, so price बढ़ गया. I mean, electricity charges, yeah, consumption increase. हुआ. She installed a new washing machine which consumed a lot of electricity. This can be another reason that why the bills increased. Before replacing the irons, Annie had 5 employees. After replacement, she increased the number of employees. So more people were working, so more electricity consumption. The other washer dryer company has shut its operation, leading to more customers for Ami. So business increase. So of course you will be needing more electricity to manage work. So if you will see, B, C, D are giving solutions. So these are trying to resolve, but this isn't. So what we do is we'll pick A as the final answer. Right? So I hope we are sorted. So let's move to the next question now. So let's begin with the discussion. Which of the following, if true, will explain the paradox, right? So let's take a look at the argument. In order to decompose the biodegradable waste material efficiently, the Residents' Welfare Association decided to dump the waste into the garden soil, which will eventually decompose and become manure, which affects the soil. Again, take a look at the transition, however. After the move, the plant growth has declined. So the idea was कि वो manure बन जाएगा तो plant growth increase होनी चाहिए थी, but it has declined. So any possible answer choice that explains us that why this has happened should serve as the right answer. Let's take a look at the options. The fertility of soil increases after adding biodegradable waste. Yes, it does, but this is not explaining that why it has declined. So this goes out. The cost of using artificial manure has decreased after the move, so it's again irrelevant. We are trying to understand that despite having the idea that if we put the waste material, the compost would be created and that will act as a fertilizer, so plant growth should increase, but it has gone down. So that's how B is not able to help. While decomposition of waste, the smell is pungent, this troubles dwellers. So again, resolution of the problem to nahi hai. The heat is released during decomposition, which kills beneficial soil bacteria. So this explains, so we can keep this. People are not actively segregating the waste, and hence far-fetched results of the move cannot be observed. So again, easy elimination. We'll go for D as the final answer, right? So I hope we are sorted. Let's move to the next question. So let's begin with the discussion. Let's read the question first. Paula's employer Seemingly inconsistent behavior in regard to healthcare expenses is best explained by which of the following? So let's see, we'll get a better idea that what is the behavior of Paula's employer. Let's read the argument. The majority of a person's healthcare expenditure goes towards curative measures. Curative means where you're trying to heal, right? Healing is what comes from the word cure, like hospitalization after injuries and care for existing illnesses. Paula's employer does not provide health insurance to his part time employees, including Paula. However, he does reimburse employees for a flu shot each winter. तो इसका बिहेवियर बाकी सारे एम्प्लॉय से डिफरेंट है क्योंकि बाकी तो हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस देते हैं, ये नहीं देते, ये फ्लू शॉट के एक्सपेंसेस देते हैं. सो व्हाट डू वी मीन बाय फ्लू शॉट? लाइक द वैक्सीनेशंस दैट वी आर टेकिंग अगेंस्ट कोविड. So, in foreign countries, what happens is that since there's so much of cleanliness and people's, everybody's uh, immunity is not as strong as we have in India. So they take flu shots regularly. So what is Paula's boss doing? Paula's boss is paying for that. He's reimbursing, but he's not providing insurance. So why is he behaving? What is his intent? Let's try and explore. That's what we have to identify. Health insurance rarely covers pre-existing illnesses, not the concern. Part-time employees are usually covered by insurance of a spouse or a parent with full-time employment. We don't know that. Fewer employees offer health insurance to part-time employees. अब पॉला के employer का ऐसा behavior क्यों है? C is not explaining that. Flu shot prevents illness that could lead to lost work days. So it might be just a smart move, right? So we can keep this, that this might be his intent, that if people take flu shots, they will not get sick and hence there would be no leaves to be given to them. Smart, right? Health insurance premiums are on the rise. Irrelevant. So we will go for D as the correct answer. Right? Interesting questions. I mean, these questions are directly testing your ability to solve problems. So you need to understand the intent. So you have to be very rational and, with an instinct to solve. So you have to be very, solution oriented while you are dealing with these questions and while you deal with instances in life, right? So try this question, interesting one, then we will begin with the discussion. So let's begin with the discussion. Which of the following, if true, does most to explain the contrast described above? So clearly we are able to identify that it is a resolve and explain question. So now we are going to take a look at the argument. Whether there is less rainfall than normal, the water level of Australian rivers falls and the river flows more slowly. So there is less rainfall than normal, so the water levels in the rivers go down. Because algae, whose habitat is river water, grows best in slow moving water, the amount of algae per unit of water generally increases when there has been little rain. By contrast, however, following a period of extreme drought, algae levels are low even in very slow moving river water. So they're saying कि जब बारिश कम होती है तो वाटर स्लो मूव करता है, उसकी वजह से उसमें algae डेवलप करते हैं. But this time there was a period of extreme drought मतलब सूखा पड़ गया था. तो algae levels were low even in very slow moving water. तो ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए. This is going against what the previous fact is stating. So we need to look for an answer choice that helps us explain that why this is happening, right? So let's take a look at the answer choices. During period of extreme drought, the population of some of the species that feed on algae tend to fall. So this is irrelevant, right? तो A को eliminate कर देंगे. उसके बाद let's come to B. The more slowly water moves, the more conducive its temperature is for the growth of algae. But ऐसा हो नहीं रहा. This is not helping us resolve the contradiction. So this goes out. When algae populations reach very high levels, conditions where the river can become toxic for other species to live there. So what are we? We are not concerned with other species, right? Not concerned. So this is out of scope again. So come to D. Australian rivers dry up completely for short intervals in period of extreme drought. तो वो कम अब उस for algae to grow you must have some water running but they were completely dry. So this can give us a possible explanation that why this is happening. So we can keep D. Except during period of extreme drought, algae levels tend to be higher in rivers in which the flow has been controlled by damming than in rivers that flow freely. So it's again irrelevant. So the best answer will be D. This is saying that for algae to thrive, to grow, to survive, you need some water flowing. But then when there is extreme drought, the rivers completely dry up. So there is no slow water for them to thrive or grow or develop, right? So let's move to the next question. Please try it and then we begin with the discussion. So let's discuss. Which of the following best explains the apparent discrepancy above? So let's take a look at the discrepancy. A recent archaeological expedition in northern Asia revealed a great number of skeletons of animals that died about 1,000 years ago. Further research indicated that all the skeletons had been subjected to temperatures in excess of 300 degrees Celsius. This fact provided grounds for speculation that they were killed and cooked by tribes that lived in the northern Asia at that time, right? तो बहुत skeletons मिले और ऐसा पता चला कि skeletons have been subjected to high temperatures. So एक speculation आया कि tribes ने उनको kill किया होगा उन animals को, they must have cooked. However, some of the skeletons belong to animals that were considered sacred by those tribes and were never hunted or eaten. तो कुछ उसमें still there were some skeletons. So any answer choice which explains us that why this would be happening will help resolve the discrepancy. Some of the skeletons found during the expedition belong to animals that no longer inhabit in the area. तो वो तो हम what do we do of this? Skeleton of most animals did not have damages typical of the skeleton of animals that had been killed, cut, and cooked. So that extent has not been discussed. So even B we can eliminate. Tribes that inhabited northern Asia 1,000 years ago used fire to cook food. Again, this is not contributing. Another study indicated there was a great famine in northern Asia, which forced local tribes to look for alternate sources of food. So now, what to do about the skeletons who were considered sacred and they were never hunted? So these again not providing the resolution. That's why I keep on saying do elimination. So that helps you eliminate all the incorrect choices. Whatever remains shall serve as the right answer. So what we have done is we have already eliminated A, B, C, and D. Now what the only choice that I have is E. So this should give us our answer. This is our answer, but let's take a look before locking this. Um, a further study indicated evidence of a large fire that had occurred in northern Asia approximately 1,000 years ago. So this choice is suggesting कि fire की वजह से exposure हुआ होगा, so it was not hunting down. So this is giving us a reason that why what was the reason for skeletons to be subjected to such temperatures excess of 100 degrees Celsius, right? So this gives a good reasoning. So we can definitely consider E as an answer. Right. So that brings us to an end of the discussion. I hope you really enjoyed the session, and I'm sure you're going to keep few important things in mind. Please follow the procedure, follow the steps, to pay attention to negative transition words. Grounds of elimination would be out of scope. Any answer choice which worsens the conflict or is one-sided definitely is a big no-no, right? So do watch the space for more videos and help us spread the word. Take care and don't forget consistency is the key. All the best.